anything for too long.
Okay, thank you. So are we good to go?
Yes.
Okie doke. Seeing the presence of a quorum, I call the Pelham School Committee meeting to order, and I will take roll call. Jenny,
Here.
Sarah Bess,
Present.
Rachel,
Here.
and I see William has popped up.
Yeah, I'm here. It says it have to have Dr. Z's permission to join. It won't let me join under my other under the ARPS email. So I'm just on my personal email.
We can see you.
Yeah, it's not the ARPS email. Zoom keeps kicking it out, and it says that it needs Dr. Z's permission, Dr. Herman
Okay.
ARPS permission that it sent her an email a while ago or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Send her an email.
Well,
Zoom.
you're here. Presumably you can raise your hand and you can talk because we can hear you. Yes, thank you. So you just want to acknowledge that you're here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. All right. So we're all here. So the meeting tonight is the budget hearing for the Pelham fiscal year 27 budget. The process will be that we'll have the presentation of the budget. We will have any clarifying questions from the committee members about the presentation. Then we will take public comment, and then we'll have committee discussion. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Shannon to start the presentation.
Good evening. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so I'm going to share some of the slides from the budget book document, but not all of the slides. And Tanya's going to start us off, and then I will take over and finish it, and then we'll take questions and things of that sort.
Hey there, good evening, everybody. I am happy to be here and excited to share with you some basic information around Pelham Elementary. As you know, rural schools have heart. Go rural schools. Pelham Elementary has 127 students, and it's a small school. It allows for personalizing. Things when we think about the students we serve, what I want you to know is that we have approximately 22% of our students with disabilities. We have a low number of multilingual learners. It's at 0.8%. And then we have a relatively high 29% of economically disadvantaged students. With Pelham, we're going to take a look at academic performance, but as I tell you all, each time I do the MCAS data report, remember that because it's a small school, one student can fluctuate the scores and you'll see volatility in it, which you've seen over the years. But right now we have an ELA academic result of 49%, meeting and exceeding, and then 54% in our math. There is a gap that exists with our high needs students. I'm going to only speak about high needs students because as I remind you that 10 is the magic number in order to report and talk about disparities between other subgroups. So we do not have 10 in our other subgroups. So I will only talk high needs. So between our high needs students, there is a 26% gap in ELA and a 21% gap in math. When you take a look, thank you, Shannon. When you take a look at this, I want you to know that we have our enrollment that's listed there. And I want you to look, you can go ahead down to the enrollment numbers because I think that's important for Pelham. Enrollment is relatively stable. However, what's fluctuated is the number of residents of Pelham that are in the schools. And right now, we are outsized in terms of school choice students versus Pelham students. So that has been a trend over the past couple of years for Pelham. With the low being 58 in FY23 in terms of students of residence. Like I mentioned, in terms of our special popularized groups that we can speak of, You'll notice that I talk again about the economically disadvantaged and our students who receive special ed services. When we think about the pressures of Pelham, the pressures of Pelham are really about it's the assessment data that you can't see. It's what's hiding. That's really where pressures lie, which is important around curriculum. We also have all the positives that are happening. It's a small school. You know, I told you I'm from a very small town. So rural schools are important because they have small numbers. They have rigorous academics most times. And Pelham is one of those schools. We have a strong tier 1. We have inclusive classrooms. We have inclusive practices. And there's a close partnerships between families and students and the school. So I'm going to pass it back to Shannon, and we're going to talk about where the financial realities are for Pelham. Thank you.
Yep. So on within the budget, we have included, as you've heard all of these things before, increases for staff based on the union contracts. We've had a big increase for our health insurance that's settled at 8.5%. We have some other operational increases. And we've had some significant costs within special education this past year that I think we'll continue to see in FY27. So this is I'll try to zoom in a little bit. This is the operating budget. So at the top, we have the total salaries and the total costs for substitutes. And then we move into the expense lines. And I mentioned this before, the reason why there is a decrease in special education and an increase in other programs is the other programs is our tuition or our school choice out, and we do have a student that is choicing out of the district. One that is not a Pelham resident, so Pelham will ultimately be reimbursed for that cost. And then one that is a Pelham resident, and also charter is within the charter expenses also within the special education. We have an increase in regular education, and that's partly due to some of the iReady curriculum materials that have to be purchased and the PD around that. We did go through all of our expense lines and make some adjustments where we could, like within our information systems, which is IT. We do have an increase in our utilities to align with our actual spending trends that we were seeing, and then an increase as we move into year 2 of our transportation contract. And like I mentioned before, an 8.5% increase for our health insurance. So when you take that, I'm going to come back to this town appropriated number of 1.9 million. But we took the estimate for chapter 70 on the cherry sheet and we placed that in here. The town is going to cover 35,000 of the charter student. There's only currently one student that we know of that's attending charter. So it's $35,000 in the budget, but then the town's going to offset that with $35,000 of free cash. We also have an increase to our Medicaid reimbursement, which is actually set up so what we receive in reimbursement one year, then we budget in the next year. So that also does come from the town as well. And in this current budget, what's listed here, we have 500,000 of school choice anticipated that's already been built in here, and then an estimate for rural school aid and rural REAP grant funding as well. And you'll notice this has gone down from a previous year, and that is because we don't know how much it's going to be. And last year, rural school aid we thought was going to see a big increase, but then they were talking about level of funding it, and then it ultimately received a decrease in funding. So we want to be conservative in the event that we don't actually receive all of those funds. So with that, with this budget to be fully funded, it would require Pelham to pay or to appropriate 1.9 million to be level services. However, based on the town's guidance of not receiving a level services budget, and instead they are going to level fund. This 1.8 million that you see here is the same amount in FY25 based on that guidance, which leaves a total gap of 109,000. So I'm going to skip over a little bit of this, and I'm going to come down to what we're doing about this gap. So at the recommendation of the school committee, or guidance, I would say, they would like to bridge this funding using additional school choice money. And you'll notice this says 115,000, whereas the gap that I presented on the prior page was 109,000. And so we're increasing it slightly because we would like to have this budget addition. And this budget addition is to increase the clerical staff at Pelham to 241 days. So it's not fully full year, but it moves them up from school year to partially full year, I would say, and allow work for over the summer. So right now, Pelham does not have a registrar, and they currently, that registration process happens with the Amherst registrar, and that person that historically has never been charged to Pelham. So that would be a 4% of their salary, which has not happened. And being that the request has been to separate Pelham's registration process separate from Amherst, we thought that increasing the number of days for this clerical person and allowing work over the summer and actually take on the task of being that registrar, that was needed for Pelham to separate that piece of Amherst. So that is, with that included, that brings us to the amount of school choice needed would be 115,000. And then this was just a little bit about what I spoke about before, was aligning this with the school committee priorities for both the increase in clerical and the additional school choice funding. So that's what I have in terms of the main operating budget. I will just touch really quick on our capital. So this is actually, if this is posted on board docs, which is the more detailed information on the budget book. But if we scroll down here, we have the proposed FY27 capital projects, which would be refinishing the stage, a tree removal, repairing the front door, repainting the cafeteria space, and ongoing ADA needs. So with that, I know there were some other questions that came in preparation for this. So I'm happy to address some of those now, Margaret, if you feel, or if you wanted to wait and have questions first, or if you wanted me to speak about those things now.
I think maybe first we should ask the committee if they have any clarifying. What I think we should do is get clarifying questions, hear from the public, and then bring that other information forward when the committee has its discussion. So with that, committee members, do you have clarifying questions you'd like to ask? Sarah Bess.
Thanks, Margaret. My question is more general, I guess, than specific to this budget. Do we know what the town ended up proposing as budgetary increases to the other departments? Or did everyone stay level funded?
The meeting that I attended, all departments were told to present level funded budgets. I do not know ultimately what was presented by departments, but that was the instruction for all departments.
Okay, I guess, and then as a process question, we're not voting tonight on the budget. We're voting on the 7th, correct?
Correct.
If we could have that information for the 7th, I would really appreciate that. If all departments in Pelham ended up being level funded, or if after that initial presentation, there was a different recommendation, if we could know what those percentages were, that would be really super helpful. I would appreciate that.
Okay. All right.
Great. Thank you. And thank
Yeah.
you, Shannon and the team, for working on this. It's great to see some more meat with the budget. Well, these are opinions, so I'll just wait. Never mind.
William.
I was just gonna ask so that on the next budget that we'd be voting on, the 115 would be worked into the budget and not be parceled out? Because right now it's 109 and then it's 115 actually for the revolving fund.
Yeah, so it would be 115. So yes, when you get to actually voting the budget, it would be worked in. But at some point, like we don't want to make any more changes. If there is any additions, adjustments, or reductions, we want to make sure it calls it out, and that's what we did. So if there was something different between now and the next one, I would add it to the adds and cuts and make the decision. But if we're just moving forward with this plan for the April 7th meeting, then yes, it'll be woven in at that point.
Rachel.
I think this maybe is also a process question. I just wanted to understand if we're voting by call center or total number. By cost center is the word I meant to say. Like how are we voting on the budget? Just as we're hearing conversation and input from community, I am trying to understand how we're thinking about the budget for our process. I think that's a Margaret question or a committee question. That might be a deliberation, not a clarification.
I don't think it's for deliberation. I'm going to say something and then I see Sarah Bess's hand. My understanding is that in Pelham, the budget is presented differently than it is at the region and Amherst, and that we vote on a final number. But if that's not, Sarah Bess, did you want to add something?
Oh, we tried to talk about cost centers in the fall, I believe, at Pelham, and I don't think they were approved or voted on. So I think this budget is a bottom number budget. And then if we want to do something different for our next year's budget, then we should think of that
Soon.
ahead of time. So this year is just a bottom line budget.
For anyone listening, cost centers are effectively, just to clarify what I'm talking about for folks listening in, cost centers are like sections of the budget. So like areas of the budget that are determined with input from the school committee and administration. So that might be like a line of teacher salaries, for example. I wanted to ask Tanya if you could just say out loud, you've explained this in other places, but just for anyone who's newer listening, can you explain what high needs students refers to?
Sure. High needs is a multifaceted thing. So it could be a combination of SC, low income, multiple MLE. It's a variety of things. So it's a composite of the individual subgroups that you might have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just want to reiterate Sarah Bess's question. I know we got it. What I heard in the last finance committee meeting was folks presented a funded budget, but but they may be receiving higher numbers than that. So that seems like important information for us as we're.
I will find that out. I will have that for you all. William.
I think those minutes are posted, so I think it can be verified through their finance committee's meetings.
Okay. I can do that, but I will also talk to John Trickey and find that out as well. Did you have another question, William?
No, that was all. I was just going to say, I
Okay.
think it's posted on their minutes.
Okay.
Answer to Sarah Bess's question.
Okay. So I don't see any other hands with clarifying questions. So at this point, oh, Jenny, sorry.
I'm wondering, do we have somewhere in the budget or in other documentation a cost per pupil average at Pelham?
It's not in the budget book, but it is in or posted on DESI's website. So the DESI has a financial section and there's a spot that says radar. And when you go there, you can see all comparison data. You can see the per pupil data on there, and I'm happy to share the link as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm looking again. I don't see any hands. So at this time, would take comment from people who are attending the meeting. Megan, do you see hands?
Don't see hands. There are two written questions in the webinar chat. I'm
Okay.
keeping an eye on hands too. A hand did just go up. I don't know if you would like to take the person with their hand up or answer the questions in the chat first. Do you have a preference?
So, well, I'm looking at them. So I think Diana Epstein's question is the same one that Sarah Bess asked, which
Okay.
is the question about level service versus level funding for other departments. And can you please explain where, okay, so this is from Sarah Segura. Can you please explain where the cost of the cameras falls in the budget and what that specific amount is? And I guess the question is, are there cameras in the fiscal year 27 budget? Because that's what we're talking about tonight.
No, not that I know of. No, but the cameras that are being referred to were already purchased, not, but that has
Yes.
not the 27 budget.
Okay, so Sarah, I think that's a topic that may come up at our April meeting, our April 7th meeting. Won't be forgotten. John Larson is asking, will the school hire someone to do the clerical work of registering, or will that be added to a current staff member's job description?
So that would be because we're adding additional days and a salary amount to the current clerical person, it would be the responsibility of that clerical person.
Okay, so it wouldn't be hiring a new person.
No.
Okay. All right.
And you do have a person with a hand up, Julio.
Oh, Julio. Okay.
Yep. I'm going to allow you to talk now.
Hi, Julio.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
And this is just questions related to the budget, not public comment, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's public comment about the fiscal year 27 budget.
Oh, okay. I have a couple things about the report, but about the explanation of the increased registrar cost, if we're going to itemize that, are we going to do outline costs for other central administration tasks that are for Pelham? Like if we're saying $6,000, which is that like for just the incoming class of Pelham Elementary kindergartners? Like, so we're paying $6,000 for potentially 15 to 20 kids. Is that what we're trying to say?
Well, register. Oh, I'm Margaret. May I respond?
Anna, go ahead.
So registration is not just for kindergartners. It's less, Pelham sees less move-in students, but there can be move-in students within other grades. And also it's I guess I wouldn't just say it's solely registration of making sure students have signed up, but it's also a piece of the school choice and processing that, which is something that historically Amherst has always done, not charging Pelham for. So there's that piece. And then in terms of itemizing other central office staff, most central office staff like myself, like people within the business office, HR, the superintendent's office that are really active within all three districts do have 4% of their salary charged to Pelham. In some cases, depending on what the nature of the job is, the percent changes, depending, but majority, I'd say like 98% is 4% of their salary.
Yeah, I'm concerned that, we already have a high central admin and regional costs already. And if we're gonna itemize this, are we gonna itemize other things and see where we can cost save on those other spots too?
Yeah, so one thing I would like to mention is and I'm going to say this broadly for all three districts, and then I'll zero in on Pelham. For central office staff, we are 54% region,
Right.
42% Amherst, and then 4% Pelham. And that split ratio came from many years ago, based on enrollment at each of the districts to determine how much percentage of someone's salary should be charged. That was what was used probably over 20 plus years ago. So if we were to look at the current enrollment now for the same configuration that we haven't changed, Pelham's percentage would actually be around 6%. So but we haven't changed that. We've kept it the historical 54, 42, 4%. So I guess I don't know the answer of is 4%, should it be less than 4%? Based on enrollment, the answer would be no. If there was another mechanism for determining that, then we would have to revisit between all three districts.
I guess my question is like, who is on that 4%? And then the yeah, I'm concerned that there's a growing cost of Amherst, that we're a small school. So even if we're 8%, it's still like the costs grow for Amherst and we're absorbing that growth, even though it's only like, let's say 15 to 30 kids that come into our school. I just want to make that clear, I guess.
Um, I'm not sure if you wanted a response to that or if that was just a comment, but yes, I do hear that. But what has been happening is that Amherst was essentially covering the cost for Pelham's registration, and being that since the superintendent has been in place and I've stepped into this role, we're really trying to ensure that subsidization between the districts doesn't happen and our financials are clear for what is each district should be and is responsible for. So if we're separating out Pelham not being with Amherst for the registration process, then Pelham should, I mean, it should have been done a long time ago, but Pelham should be paying for their clerical to do their registration, to do their school choice, for their implementation of their curriculum and PD, things of all of those sorts that we've been working through.
Okay. Can I also talk about the report itself?
I think so. It's part of
Okay.
the presentation.
Okay, yeah. I guess as I was reading the report, the terms like pressures, supports, and needs are not explained in a way that families and community members need to make informed decisions. For example, like high quality support and services, but it doesn't say what those supports actually are or what they cost. And if we're going to be asked to invest in new services, we need to know specific positions, interventions, and price tags and how they differ from what Pelham already provides. And then Pelham is praised for a strong academic program, but it doesn't include any academic data, no comparisons, no growth metrics, and no plan for improving instruction in FY27. If Pelham is strong academically and if improvement is needed, the data and plan should show it. And I guess we went over the $6,000. I guess the other thing is framing of school choice is incomplete. The current number is 61 Pelham residents and 66 choice students is almost balanced, but more importantly, the long-term data shows that school choice has been a stabilizing force in Pelham for nearly 20 years. The graph presented by the district makes this clear. School choice enrollment has remained steady over time, even as resident enrollment has fluctuated. This stability is what allowed Pelham to maintain viable class sizes, preserve programming, and keep Pelham Elementary functioning as a K-6 school. It's difficult to understand why, without projections of FY28 and FY29, why school choice is being framed as a structural concern when the long-term trend suggests the opposite. And the other thing about the report is attendance is included in the budget report, even though our attendance rates are normal and absenteeism is not a budget driver. It's not clear how this information helps us understand the FY27 budget. And like my main public comment that I wanted to say is the biggest challenges facing the town of Pelham are not inside Pelham Elementary. They come from outside forces that the report barely acknowledges. The statutory metrics used to calculate the regional assessment, which dramatically inflate Pelham's required contribution, and the limits of Proposition 2.5, which cap the town's levy tax and restrict how revenue Pelham can raise each year. Together, those two forces squeeze the town's appropriations to all services, including Pelham Elementary. And if we don't address these structural issues, we risk blaming the school for problems that originate in state formulas and state law. And that's the main thing that I wanted to say.
Okay. Julio, I just want to say some of your comments that issues about school choice and other things, I think are not directly applicable to the fiscal year 27 budget discussion, but they are issues. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I think
the report was showing it as if it's an incomplete presentation for what they were presenting. It makes it seem as if it's a strain.
All right. I hear you. All right. Diana Epstein. Hi, Diana. Megan?
Yes, I can unmute her now.
Thank you.
You should be able to speak.
Thank you, Megan. Thanks for explaining that line item for the registrar. That was what most of my questions were around. Can you explain a little more about how the registration for Pelham is being separated out and when? Right now, it looks like the online form for registration and school choice is just a singular form with a single contact person. I didn't walk through the entire form, but it looks like there's only one contact listed.
Diana, you're asking about this year's registration. We're really talking about the next year's budget. So these are questions that I think are going to be part of the agenda on April 4th.
Okay, so for this year, there is one registration process and one school choice process for both Amherst and Pelham?
I'm not in a position to answer that tonight. So please come to the meeting on April 7th because those things are going to be on the agenda for April 7th. That's a regular school committee meeting.
Okay, well then the note I'll make about that 6,000 for the next year is that I hope that the plans for consistent communication, improved enrollment process, and strengthening outreach, as noted in the report, are clearly communicated to the community. Because right now, I think there's a lot of confusion around who owns school choice promotion and who is responsible for what. So I hope if we're adding additional hours, that process is clear and, executed in a way that everybody understands what's supposed to happen.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see something in the chat. With the low registration rates for Pelham, how is the cost of additional clerical hours calculated? Shannon,
what's happening here is the current employee is school year, not full year, and we're adding additional days. So the calculation of that is based on the additional days, but it's not a complete full year position at 261 days. It's at 241 days. And so the increase from, and I cannot remember off the top of my head how many days is school year. I'm maybe Tanya or Jen remembers. I know they do.
Hi, Shannon.
10.
210 days. The increase is from 210 days to 241.
Right. So it's a total of 31 additional days, and that will allow work through the summer, whereas right now there is no clerical work during the summer. And then will allow her to do, or that clerical position to do the registration, the choice, the outreach, things of that sort.
Okay, thank you. Don't see anything else in the chat. Oop, let me see. So I see something in the chat from John Larson. I'm having a hard time understanding. It's a comment. Okay, I think perhaps it's a comment, not a question. To Julio's point about how school choice is portrayed in the budget document, here is the first bullet in the where pressures exist section, a small overall enrollment with only a portion of students residing in Pelham, which impacts funding stability and long-term planning. So I guess that was for Julio in the comment from John Larson. Okay. All right. Then I think it's time for us to move on to committee discussion. William, are you putting your hand up?
It looks like another community member has their hand raised.
Yeah, I see a hand. I can ask her to unmute to determine if she's asking another question or if it's
Yeah,
just.
I just had one more comment to make.
Oh, hi, Diana.
Hi. Just to, the point of breaking out, Julio made this point, and I just sort of wanted to share my comments on it. If we're breaking out services that the central office was previously doing, like registration, I would be interested to see what we are paying specifically like this was broken out for other services.
Okay.
Thank you.
I see John's hand up also.
Oh, thanks. John? Megan, can you let John Larson in to speak?
Yes, I am right now.
Thank you.
Sorry, I clicked the wrong one. Hang on. Yeah. There we go.
Hi, John.
John, you should be able to speak now.
Thanks everybody. And thanks for all of the important discussion here. I just wanted to maybe add a little color to my comment in the chat, which is that the first bullet in the budget document, when it talks about pressures on the district and the budget, talks about how it doesn't mention choice kids, but it's basically the reverse. It's implying that choice kids are a problem because of the fluctuating enrollment of the residential population. So I think it is, I just wanted to point out very clearly that Julio's comment is like very clear in the pressures on the district or on the school budget discussion. And that is, I think, what he was trying to come at when it was saying how choice students are portrayed in the document as a risk and a challenge when the rest of the actual data in the document is very clear that they've been a stabilizing force for a very long time in the Pelham school history. Thanks for the comment.
Okay, thank you, John. And also your written public comment is posted to the
Great.
agenda.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I do not see anyone further.
Okay, then we're going to move on to committee discussion. Who wants to start? William, thank you.
I guess I'll start. I took some notes, so let me see. I wanted to, I guess this is asking a question, whatever. When Shannon, you made the comment that the we pay for 4% of the most of the district stuff, and if you really look at the numbers, it should probably be 6%. I'm just curious if our enrollment is taking total enrollment or only town kids enrollment into consideration. Are you adding in the choice kids? Because in my opinion, DESE doesn't use the choice kids in their data. They only use the ones that reside in town. And then I think for the region, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the region uses the rolling average of the 4 towns, and the choice kids are not part of that. They would be totally separate. So I'm just curious, when you're doing the figures of it should be really be 6%, is that taking in consideration just our town kids, or is that including the choice kids too?
I will get back to you on that. I have to go back to where I have that formula. And I'll say the 5-year rolling average, that's just for the assessment method. That's not for the actual total kids.
Yes, right. Okay.
Just for clarification too, my understanding is central administration includes HR, IT, finance, and the superintendent's office. That those 4 departments are all part of central administration.
And then I have another question I have is that I saw when I was going through the documents that on one hand, it says that the iReady, iMath, the 19,000, 20,000, whatever that charge was, includes PD. And another piece of information I saw that it doesn't include PD. So I was just curious which one it was, because I saw conflicting information about the PD piece on the iReady and iMath.
Yep. Tanya, would you be able to answer that?
All right. So initially we had everything rolled in and then we took it out. So the last document, if you notice, the price was different. We took out the cost of PD. So that's why it's broken down on that sheet. It does not include this, and this part is free, because I think at the time, you all were talking about the cost, like the price of it. So just made sure you can see the bottom line of what the curriculum, not the extras in it were.
So there's no, just to clarify, there's no PD on the iReady iMath in this budget.
In the budget, I'm not sure if what numbers on the budget book, but on the document that you all, the question list.
Yes,
Right.
we have $19,002.66, and this is based on pre-projected enrollment numbers,
Yeah.
and that's what we have in the budget.
Okay.
Right, but it just in the budget it says it's for PD, and I think on the sheet it says it's not.
So
I think the
know.
numbers are the same on
Yeah,
both.
I think the reason was that document, this piece on in the budget is not updated to remove that. But I'll make sure that's removed. The PD piece is removed for the next
Okay.
one.
But it's still 19,000, still the same
Right.
cost. It just does not include PD.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks, Shannon.
I think I'm done for right this minute.
Okay.
Rachel's hand is up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rachel. Go ahead.
No problem. Tanya, and a related iReady question. I read pretty closely and couldn't really fully understand this. Is that cost per pupil, or per how does iReady work? Like, what might we expect if there were to be an increase of 20 students? Would that number go up significantly in the future, or how does that work? Yeah.
So there is a per pupil. Let me find the per pupil cost. And Stephanie, if you're online and you know that per pupil cost, I'll look for it. She's on.
And if you need to look that up and get back to us, that's fine, but that would be helpful information.
I have it somewhere. I'm just trying to see where it is. But yes, I will find out for you and get back to you.
Great.
The per pupil cost.
And this next question is not for Tanya, so it looks like you might almost be there. So if you get it while I'm talking, go.
Okay.
we had comment that really said this. I just really want to reiterate agreements with with some of the comments we heard from John and Julio. Shannon, I really appreciate the context that you shared around working to make sure that no district is subsidizing the work of another district at the central office level. And I think it is important that that get done in a holistic way rather than starting here. I understand we've got to start somewhere, but I share the concern that we heard from the public about starting with a single cost that will need to be on Pelham's balance, and would really like for us to find another way or to I would really like for us to find another way to do that. It doesn't seem like a reasonable plan to me that balancing start just with a single position immediately. That is not a question, that is a comment.
Okay, so
Yep.
that is something we need to keep in mind when we start to talk about the budget for fiscal year 28, which would be our opportunity to change the way things are done.
Yeah, that's my thought. If we're going to talk about changing how individual charges are coming from the central office in that way, I think that needs to be done in a holistic way, and we need the time. Shannon, I know we are asking quite a lot from you, and that can't happen in this kind of time frame, but I do imagine it can for a year from now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Do you have anything now, William? You said you were done for them.
Sure.
Yes, got a hand up.
It's for the iReady iMath stuff. Is that curriculum? I know it's when I looked online, I think it's like $32 to $35 per child kind of thing, but it's iMath and then also iReady, like it is like double the cost or whatever, because we're doing two of them and not just one. Is it for K and all the way through 6 that we're doing it? Okay.
Yes, it's K through 6. And there is the cost per like math. I think the math cost is, thank you, it's $50 per student for 2 volumes, and then $70 per student for 6 volumes.
And by volumes, are those the consumables? Or is the consumables separate?
Yes, ma'am. The 6 workbooks plus the personalized instruction. So like the Rachel's not in her head, but like the my path, all of those digital components as well. And that's magnetic literacy and Ready Classroom Math are the 2 curriculums that Curriculum Associates use, that we used from there. The iReady itself, just to make sure, iReady is just the platform, like the data platform, but the curriculum itself is called Magnetic Literacy and then Ready Classroom Math.
Okay. Jenny.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand, Tanya. I know that we have been, this is sort of a couple years now that we have been trying to integrate this curriculum within the school. And we don't have yet, is it accurate to say that we don't yet have kind of year-over-year data to show the impact of this new curriculum on the school? I feel like the last time we got a report, that was the case.
Right, because at the time, let's say, I think it was in last year, there was only one classroom using the piloting the reading, the magnetic, at the time, magnetic literacy in K. So you don't have that information yet for Pelham, where, in the other district, several other classrooms were using it over time. So, but Pelham last year, it was just the one, and it was kindergarten. If you remember, you saw the kindergarten iReady beginning and end of year, but everything else was blank. That's why. But this year, all the classrooms are using it. And William, that's probably where your question came from, because last year it was only kindergarten for the reading.
Ms. Giselle's making sure you know it's first grade.
First grade. Sorry. Thank you, Ms. Giselle. First grade. Yes. Excellent job.
Okay.
And if I could just say thank you so much, Ms. Giselle, for actually piloting last year.
All right. I'm looking in all the corners. Sometimes those hands get lost in the background of the corners, but I don't think I see anymore. Oh, yes, Rachel.
You didn't miss me. I just raised my hand. Sarah Beth, you're making me very nervous with your camera on while you drive. I'm just also need to say that out loud. I
I'm not driving, I'm passengering.
Okay, great. I think this is less of a, this is also not a question. This is a comment that I want to like invite my colleagues on the school committee to consider. I looked back, the meeting notes are not online from the finance committee, that meeting that we're talking about, but I received a summary from other people who did attend. Other departments are receiving level services, not level funding. And I would like to invite us to consider if we might want to increase our request from the town to, what is on my mind is that in February, when we last discussed increasing our use of the choice revolving fund, we were talking at 85 to 90K point. And I would like if our dip into the choice fund remained at that level. I know, Margaret, you're gonna find out more information definitively, but in the next 2 weeks, I would invite all of us to think about what that might look like and how we might navigate the next conversation and vote on the budget.
Okay. All right.
Shannon's hand is up.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi. So if our next meeting for the Pelham School Committee is April 7th, and I'm not sure if you all are meeting between now and then, but
No.
if some direction, guidance that you all would like to see so that I can prepare the budget vote information accordingly for that meeting, that would be helpful.
Okay. If we were going to consider whether we might ask the town to increase what they're giving us, that's going to have to be a discussion deliberation, which means we have to have a meeting. It would be possible to have a meeting just for that topic. William?
Can we not discuss it tonight as a budget?
We could discuss whether we want to ask for more.
Right. I mean, we could give that guidance tonight to, I mean, because we're not giving the guidance to the town. We're not asking the town tonight. We would be asking the town through presenting them a budget that we vote on is how we ask the town, I think. So tonight we could just ask, give direction to Shannon on how to format the budget for our vote on our next meeting.
Okay, I see Sarah Bess's hand up too. Sarah Bess?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
No? Okay, good. Okay, so thank you, Rachel, for finding that. So yes, I would be very interested to know what our budget at level services would look like and what the cost difference is between what is currently being presented versus what level services would be for us, not tapping into extra from our revolving choice fund, keeping that at the steady, I think it's 500,000 that's usually used, or some number that sounds like that. And then what that would look like. So thank you.
William?
I was just going to say, I think that number is already figured out for us, Sarah Bess, because it's the 115,000. It was originally the 109, but now it's 115,000. So I would,
Yep.
I was thinking in my head, like to be able to have a conversation about the increased costs from the 87,000 that we were presented in, I think, January, maybe it was February, I can't remember, to now this 115,000, which is like almost $30,000 increase that we would be dipping into our revolving fund. So I was, thinking that we maybe could ask the town to meet that 30,000 extra, which would be like a 1.6% increase over last year's monies. But I guess I haven't figured it out, but obviously the less we have to dip into our revolving fund, the better. And we're already dipping in there 500,000. So I could definitely get on board with what Sarah Best is saying, is to take the whole 115,000 and put that into the ask, but I would have to see what percent increase that is over the 1.8 million I think that we're asking from last year. I don't know what that percent is, but I certainly I would not vote for this budget and us dipping the additional 30,000 into our revolving fund. I would be prepared to vote yes on a budget that kept us at that 87,000. And certainly I would be very much for what Sarah Best is presenting, which is the asking the town for the 115,000 more.
So are you saying two different things, William?
I'm saying that I would not vote for the budget as presented today.
Yes.
I would vote for a budget that I think Rachel was talking about, which was the 30,000, the difference from the 87 to the 115, which is like 30,000. So
yeah,
requesting that, I think it's the 1.8 million from town that's in the budget, and then adding the 30,000 to that amount.
Okay.
But I really do like what Sarah Best is saying, which is offering, presenting a leveled service budget, which I think it would be asking the town for an additional 115,000 over what we asked them for last year.
That is correct, and it's a 6.5% increase over FY26.
So in the light of that, I think that's the right thing to do for students, but I don't know if I could vote for that either. So
6.5% pretty high.
6.05%.
6.05. Anybody else have any comments about that? Rachel?
I don't want us to be in a situation of having our proposed budget denied. And I think proposing that the town cover that much is likely to land us in that place. And so I'm not usually the conservative voice among us, but my input is that we find somewhat of a middle ground there and increase our budget request to the town by somewhere between 20 and 28,000, which is what I'm seeing as the gap that we have right now between that 87 and the current gap. That is one. I would welcome other input there. I do have the meeting minutes from the meeting where Finance Committee said that they will be increasing the allocation to every department except the elementary school by 2.5%, which comes to a total, I'm reading really quickly, so I think it's 18K, it might be 16K. But somewhere in there, which is obviously a lot less than 2.5% from the elementary school. So with the knowledge that 2.5% from our budget is a whole lot more money than 2.5% from another department in our town, I would like for us to be increasing at around 1%, which I believe is around $20,000. And with a lot of respect to the work that was done to propose this increase to the registrar, I would like to see a budget without that included, because I don't think we have enough information to be increasing central office costs like that at this time.
Can I just add that the clerical at Pelham Elementary School is not rolled up under central office?
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, I guess we've been talking about it like that's part of central office, but that's a Pelham only position.
Right. Okay. So if that's like part of an effort to not be subsidizing costs from the central office, that still feels like the same conversation. And
I think it's not being subsidized by by the other districts, Amherst and the region.
I understand. What I'm saying though is, if in the past registration was covered by the cost from the central office and we do not yet know with the detail that our community is asking for, what central office costs are actually providing to Pelham.
Fast.
I
Yeah.
don't think it is reasonable to now put that cost back into our school. That's my input there.
Yeah.
I also, as we've heard, we're talking about, I think in a very good year, 30 new students over the entire year joining the school. And so $6,000 feels like a lot of money to be talking about for 30 students to have their documents reviewed and join and be processed through a registrar. That feels like a whole lot of money for us to be talking about. I understand that it is a cost being transferred theoretically from the central office that was subsidized previously and now moving into the school. And until we know what is being subsidized and what's not, I don't think that that is a reasonable cost for us to pick up.
Okay, so I would like to say, I think we need more information. We need to know what all is involved in the registration process. I think that we need to know where the money for that is coming from. Is it coming out of the Amherst budget? Because we're combined with Amherst right now, or is it coming out of central office? I think we don't know the answer to that question. I think we need to find that out.
And I just want to add, because there's so many discussions of what central office is, what central office isn't, in terms of cost centers with central administration. That's the business office, HR, IT. Well, actually, on Pelham's budget, IT is not included, so it's just HR, business office, and superintendent's office. But the registrar in Amherst is under the family center and the student support services. So I guess it all depends of what you consider central office or central administration. And I feel like a lot of it's interchanged. So maybe in our next meeting, we can kind of, or some org chart or something might be helpful to really explain who is who and a part of what.
Yeah, what I'm just saying though is that if we're what you were explaining was that the reason this is an increased Pelham cost is because it had previously been subsidized by the central office. And so if that is with that as the case, until we have full information on every single person that is being covered under Pelham's budget, even at 4%, that is what my input is there. I guess I've said my point.
Sarah Bass? Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So that's why I wasn't suggesting that the town cover the whole 115. I know that is an unreasonable ask, which is why I was asking what the increases to the other departments were, so we can see possibilities of being in line with that. I like what both Rachel and William presented as around somewhere between 1.75% additional ask. So I would be very comfortable voting for a budget along those lines. I think it's also important to remember when we're talking about registration for kindergarten and school choice that given how the public and the committee has been invested in kindergarten registration this year as opposed to years in the past. So to me, what it sounds like is that we're asking for more, and in order to have more, it costs more. So that is how I'm thinking of that additional cost. So that would be, yeah, that's where I'm sitting with these. Thanks.
Okay, Jenny?
I'm just trying to get clarification because it sounds to me like what Shannon is saying is that that registrar cost has never been covered by the central office. It's been covered by Amherst, and Amherst is, and now because we're saying we want to decouple ourselves from Amherst, we are bearing that cost ourselves, which I think is aligned with what Sarah Bess is saying, that we're asking for more, so it's going to cost us more. So I'm just trying to get clear on why are we facing that additional cost this year when we haven't ever had that cost in the past? Is it because we're asking for more, or is it because that cost was being covered by Amherst in the past?
So I think it's both. It was a clerical person split only between Amherst and Region, and not split on Pelham's budget at all. And there's the request to separate out Amherst and Pelham and their registration, whereas it was always Amherst just added Pelham in and did their registration process. But without any charge to Pelham for that. But if we're changing that process and we're doing more, then Pelham's clerical should take on that role to do that.
William?
So to clarify that briefly before I get to my other question, if Pelham clerical should cover that, are you, I guess I want to clarify, is that something that the clerical office, like and I don't know what their title is, but the person who runs the front area of Pelham, is that something that could be worked into there?
That's who would be doing it.
Okay, so the $6,000 is to supplement that position. It's not to supplement the regional, it's not to supplement the Amherst person doing it. The
Correct.
6,000 is to have one of the Pelham employees take on more responsibilities.
Correct.
Okay. So I guess for me, I would want to know, I know Margaret said that that's for next year, not this year, but to me, this, like, we are today starting registration, and I understand that this budget cycle doesn't start paying for things until July. What would, like, I guess I'm just concerned that will we get, I feel like we need more on the choice to get to beef it up. And so will this bring us that, do you think, by spending the 6,000 for our clerical staff to do it in Pelham, do you think that will be helpful?
Oh.
Yeah, that's all.
In terms of helpful in getting more choice students, is that the question?
Correct. Yeah, for this budget cycle. Like, I know the budget doesn't start paying until July, but
yeah, so right now it's my understanding that the current registration process, that it's not changing for the registration that's happening right now is not changing to the clerical person at Pelham at this moment. It would stay with that person. However, do I believe that it's solely being in Pelham will increase school choice? I think this person will be able to do more like outreach, and that'll be part of their description in order to do that. But it is also separating Pelham from the Amherst application piece, which has been asked. And so in the past, if students choose to attend Amherst for school choice, and they could pick options. Pelham was listed as one of those options with doing this. So then we're separating that out. So then families and parents have to go directly to Pelham, and it won't be on Amherst. They'll have to go to Pelham and want to apply to Pelham to go to be school choice. So that's a difference that we'll see. And I guess I don't know 100%, but the idea would that be that this person would be doing the registration and doing the more bigger outreach for school choice.
And then one last clarifying question. I understand that this budget starts in July. Is that correct?
July 1.
July 1. So then could we expect that July 1, the registration will be separated starting July 1?
I think so. I think there'll be some transitioning, but yes.
Thank you.
Rachel.
My question wasn't about this, but Shannon, I don't mean to put you on the spot and you can say you really don't know. I'm confused how the registration could change mid-cycle and like follow up to William's last question.
So at that point, I guess what I'm saying is right now for fiscal year 26, we are continuing as is. And I think you already had your school choice vote, if I remember, or maybe it's upcoming.
Yep.
I'm not firm into the logistics of registration. I really don't touch it. I know some about school choice and I know a little bit about what this plan is, but to speak to all of the specifics is not my forte. I don't know if Tanya, if you have anything you would like to add that could be helpful.
Sure. So currently the way it works is Amherst and Pelham are school choice together on one application. If a parent wanted to school choice into Amherst, they would not be able to submit a application unless they choose Pelham. So whether they want to submit to Pelham or
Tell
not.
when people are talking.
So yes, Sarah Beth, I just want to make sure you know you're unmuted. But whether they wanted to school choice to Pelham or not, they would have to select Pelham in order to complete their Amherst application because it's all together. So what happens now is this is the time once you vote, the applications start. And then I'm looking at the lottery happens, the school choice lottery happens and they get notifications the first week of July. But school choice doesn't actually officially close until October 1st. So people could keep applying if there were spaces. Now, again, this is if there are spaces, but the process is available. And so when Shannon says July 1, it could still happen, because you would still be school choice. And what would happen is it would be a separate Pelham school choice. So it would no longer be on Amherst. And so that choice application continues until October. So
I think Tanya, I think the question was more if it's transitions from the person who currently does it to the clerical in Pelham in July. Is that, if I'm understanding, Rachel, was that the question?
Yeah, I'm just like mid-process transition seems complex, I think was maybe part of William's question as well.
Well, and that's my point. So it would be that you would have to have your process set up in time for it to be July 1. But that's what I'm saying. Right now, it's still on Amherst, so it's still pushed into that. So if they change it, it would be basically starting another process. So you would have to then let families know that to school choice, you have to go to the Pelhams for if you do it in July. But Mickey has her hand up and probably can add more clarification if there's something I'm missing for you.
Hi, Mickey.
Hi, sorry.
It's okay.
If it does happen to be that it transfers to Pelham July 1st, then we would need, I think the extra 6,000 that you're talking about would have to be making sure we have an administrative assistant throughout the summer, because right now we don't. We only have a couple of weeks. And I don't know how, I think Marquita is that person and she works maybe 1 week into July. So that's where the challenge becomes. I do think that having it separate can be hard on Pelham. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that because people can choose Pelham as a second choice if they have their heart set on something in Amherst as a first choice. But if we're moving separate, I think it would be great for Pelham to have like encourage people to apply both to Pelham and Amherst if they're kind of in between Amherst or Pelham. Does that make sense?
Mickey, can I ask? So what you're saying is right now, if somebody gets the application, it has both Amherst and Pelham, and people can have a first choice and a second choice?
They can, yeah, they can choose 1, 2, 3, and 4 right now.
Okay.
Next year, I think it'll go down to 3 because of the combining of the two schools.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they used to label which one they wanted first, second, and third. So we did
Okay.
get some school choice kiddos where Pelham was not their first choice. But because they didn't get into their first choice, they opted to come to Pelham.
Oh, that's interesting piece of information.
I had some more questions.
Let me just see. Mickey, was that all?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer other questions if.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here tonight.
Tanya,
go ahead.
I had a few questions kind of relevant here that got off the rail. Tanya, I think you might be the most knowledgeable on this, and I also think that some of this is under Marta, so thank you for filling in as much as you're able to. But I have some concern about when we're talking about things like registration and outreach. In my professional field, when we talk about outreach, we really make sure that the people doing outreach have marketing and communications professional skills. My understanding is that in many school districts, that is also how outreach is run. It are the people that are in charge of outreach for Amherst for how choice and registration have been done until now, including now, folks with some comm skills. And is that something we would risk losing by putting that on Pelham's admin support person, who I don't believe that that's her area of expertise?
So I don't know everyone's
Sure.
area, but we do, like the comms Seth's on now does work with that.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how that would go if you switched it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
sure
either way, Seth is a central office employee and 4% of his
Oh, yeah.
salary at this point is charged. So he would certainly be able to assist with pushing out of information that he already does for all 3 districts.
Okay. That just feels relevant as we're
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use a name. He's our climate and media specialist.
Thank you. Yeah, that's helpful context to share. I may have lost track of my last question, and
let me go to William, and then we'll come back to you when you're ready. William.
So I was just going to ask, do we know because I don't know this, like I don't know if Pelham ever maxes out their choice seats. But I guess I would say, does Amherst max out their choice seats? Do we know?
By grade level in each place.
I don't know the exact per grade level, but yes, they sometimes max out.
Just because I think that if right now it's easy because you go to one place and you can check off the box for, Amherst and Pelham, but certainly if, wherever these families are residing at, if they do not want to stay at their home school, I would assume that they probably would still go to Amherst and then drive up the street to Pelham and fill out the forms, or maybe they're online. I don't know, but
There is online. But it's current where, let's say, the kindergarten this year was maxed out for Amherst, and then students came to Pelham, as I think Nikki was trying to explain, the second choice or their default choice for it. And then if, let's say, the seat opens up in Amherst, sometimes they go back to Amherst because that was their first choice. And Mickey, I'm not sure if your hand
Yeah.
still or again.
I can answer the question about whether we max out. In certain grades, we definitely max out. It in the older grades, we often have either maxed out or are already maxed out. This year was a little bit of an I can't say it. Anomaly. In that we didn't fill first grade and kindergarten like we have in the past. But we have filled out all the other upper grades.
So let me see if I can just summarize. So there are a couple of questions about how we want to proceed with the budget. One is, do we want to ask the town for additional money? Do we want to present a budget that is asking for some additional funds? I guess the other is, do we want to keep the 6,000 in the budget, or do we want to take that out? Is that sort of summarize where we are at this point in time? Okay. Well, let's take the first one. And I don't know that we need to take a vote. I guess I would ask for a show of hands on how many people think that we ought to ask the town for some additional money based on what we've learned about other departments. Okay, I'm seeing hands that say yes, should. So the next question is, what is that amount going to be? And we've had a suggestion of 30,000, 20 to 28,000, 1%. Anybody want to name a number?
Could we do the other question first? Because that's going to narrate, I think that might dictate the number.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay, that's fine. So about adding in, keeping the proposed 6,000 in the budget or not? William.
I was just going to say, for me, I would need to know more of a plan of how that 6,000 was going to benefit, like how it was going to look, not maybe for this year, but like for the next year, what our investment of the 6,000 would look like. So for right now, without more information, I would say I would take that out and keep the outreach as is for this next budget cycle.
So there would
I had more information.
So that would mean keeping the process as it is this year. The process is starting now for registration and school choice, stay as is, and we look into this for the budget for the following year.
Correct. Unless we can get more information, like by our vote. So I guess I'm on the fence, I guess is what I'm saying, right?
Okay. All right.
Can I add one more question in this mix? Does anybody know, has Amherst School Committee voted whether they're accepting choice this coming year?
I asked, my understanding was they were going to do that in April.
They didn't, they are going to take it, or they're going to vote?
If they're going to vote, I can
sure,
check on that. But when I asked Deb a couple weeks ago, she told me they would do the vote in April. Tanya, do you by any chance know whether they did that?
They didn't do it the night,
The other night.
last meeting, they did not do it, but that was up for the next agenda when they did agenda planning at the end. They did mention it.
Okay. Okay. So no, we don't
So we
know.
don't know, we won't know that in time for this because I am curious if they might not be taking choice in their transition year, and if that would impact our situation. I'm sorry though to interrupt.
That's a good question. William?
I was just going to say that, like, when I look at other districts, say Belchertown, Northampton, they already have choice open. And I know that we don't. So, like, Amherst hasn't voted on it. So I feel like on one hand, our hands are tied by keeping it tied to Amherst, because then we're going to be on the Amherst timeline, which I think historically been in like July.
May. They open in May.
They open in May, but you don't find anything out until July.
That's
If
right.
we did it on our own, we would, I hope, with more clarification from staff, like, could we start the timeline more similar to what Northampton or Belchertown does, which I think they opened it up like last week or the week before. So like, I think investing the 6,000 because we opened up our choice seats 2 weeks ago would be I could vote for that more so than we're going to pay the 6,000, but we're still going to be on the same really late timeline of opening up choice compared to other districts.
So I guess I have a question. Part of this is, I guess I wonder if we open up school choice now, is it really going to make a difference? Because school choice stays open and the lottery doesn't happen till the summer.
Well, other schools do lotteries like now before school gets out. Like, there's not a deadline for the state to say when we have to have the lottery. So, like, in the long run, if we paid the 6,000 and controlled it ourselves, could we mirror ours more on what Belchertown or Northampton does, which is they open it up now, and before school is out, they've already had, like, I think theirs is in like May, I think, their lotteries. They have multiple rounds of them, but they have their first ones very early.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment? I'm a little concerned. I think we need to take into consideration what Mickey's thoughts might be on this, because she's going to be involved as the principal, deciding how many slots will be open in what grades. And she may have some input for us since she's had some experience with the process. Mickey, is that something you'd be willing to speak to?
Sure. I don't see a problem with opening it sooner, if I'm thinking of as many things as I should be thinking of. We haven't, because we haven't, as was mentioned, we've been doing it at the timeline that Amherst has done theirs. I agree with what Rachel said about outreach being done with by someone who knows what they're doing. I have been feeling a little bit of pressure lately to do that, and finding that my time is not as ample to do that, because I'm still, other than this week, doing all the other responsibilities I have. So I have been feeling like if someone else could take the charge on that, that would be great. I do think that it would be fine if you were to open it earlier and close it earlier, that might leave less of a need for someone full time over the summer.
So Mickey, sorry, I should raise my hand.
Go ahead, Rachel. Go ahead.
Mickey, I'm not totally clear on your recommendation, but is your recommendation to be able to have that bit of money, but to use it to pay someone who has marketing expertise? Is your recommendation to be able to extend the current administrator's year? Are you still thinking that over? But what would you like to see if you could manage this?
Well, I do think opening up school choice earlier would help Pelham. I think I'm not sure about the 6,000. This is the first I'm like hearing about it, so I would have to. I'm not great. I'm not a fast thinker. I have to think things through a little bit more. I do think that most of my job over the summer is outreach to families who have submitted to the lottery, gotten letters saying they're accepted, but we haven't heard back from them. And I outreach a lot, and that probably brings us 50% more students by me doing that. I don't know what's involved in the registration and the paperwork. So I'd need to learn more about that. I hope
So
that answers.
yeah, I'm just thinking back in February, one of the points of guidance that we made and that I know I pushed on really specifically was to say that it would be helpful for the superintendent's office to identify what they might need to be able to do more outreach. What I would like to suggest is that we do allocate that $6,000, but not so specifically to a role and rather to outreach. And that Mickey and the superintendent's office and the team be able to have the time to figure out what makes the most sense to do with that money to increase numbers most appropriately. That's sounding like the need you're expressing. Does that seem like a good read, Mickey?
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Okay, that to me sounds like a reasonable thing to do. Is anybody else?
I like that suggestion as well.
I have one question for Shannon about this. So if we decided that we don't feel the need to have the to expand this position to year round for registration, but we wanted to then look at what more we could do in marketing or whatever, is that a cost that could be covered by, say, a donation from the PTO or something, and not be included in this budget? Like, could we do an outreach to the PTO to say, hey, can y'all raise, $1,000, $2,000, whatever it would take to do a more robust outreach? Is that something that we would be able to have fund? Like, if the families stepped up and would pay, is that something we could do?
So we can always accept donations for a specific cause for what somebody wants to donate it to and have that in a specific fund. The concerning thing that I have right now is the regardless, Pelham's registration has to be done, and the the allocation of cost of who does it and what Pelham should pay is where if we don't apply this 6,000, we don't give this work to the clerical, then do we continue doing it as we have? And if so, then Pelham should have a portion of that person's salary on their budget.
So it sounds to me like we're getting school choice and registration hooked together in this discussion, and I'm not sure that they really are. They're really two separate processes, not one. Is that correct, Mickey or Tanya?
Yes. I mean, if we're not paying Amherst, someone in Amherst to do registration or paying full-time secretary over the summer, then it would fall on me. And I'm not sure what it entails, the registration, because that I'm the only one working over the summer. So I do think we're combining them.
But also the registrar does both school choice and registration, because school choice is a registration type of, you're registering to go to a particular school. So the registrar does both. So if there is not a registrar, as Mickey said, I assume it would be her. But above my pay grade, so I'm not really sure, but you should know that they're both. The registrar
Okay.
does both of those things, even though they're unique, two different systems. They're both
Okay.
registration for school, and it happens with the registrar.
Okay, thank you for that clarification for me, Tanya.
You're welcome.
Mickey?
Sorry, I already said, but I.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. William?
I was just going to say that, like, I do not want to advocate for Amherst to be subsidizing our registration. So I would like to have information as to, and I don't know what the split would be, because this would not be a split between the region Amherst and Pelham. This would be a split between Amherst and Pelham for that person who does the registrar. And I don't know if they're full-time only registrar, or if they have other duties that they do for Amherst. But whatever percent of their job is done on registration for Amherst, then I think we should look at, like, how many kids Amherst has and how many kids we have, and really look at what the cost would be for us to share that employee for the registration of our students. And I, you know, it would be interesting to see what that number would look like, I guess. Is that a $4,000 investment? Is that a $12,000 investment? I don't know, but I would like to know if we're using that one employee from, I'm assuming it's one employee, I don't know, but if we're using, the person who does the registration for Amherst, is that their only job? And if it is, then what percentage will we need to pay? I kind of would imagine that they have that job and other duties. And if they're not supporting Pelham with those other duties, then how much of their job is registration? And then could we parse out what we would need to pay to support that job?
I feel like we're really getting down into weeds here at this point in time, and I'm not sure that that's information we're going to be able to get in a timely way. I guess I would just like to go back to what Rachel suggested, which is that we put the money, that 6,000, in the budget, and let the people who are going to be involved figure out the best way to use that to promote Pelham. And when it's time for the budget next year, we will have information so that we can say, no, we're going to take that out. We don't want to do that. Or yes, that is something that worked. I guess that's how I feel about it.
I'm thinking about what Shannon was just saying, that doesn't solve the problem of the registrar issue, I do not mean this in any minimizing way, but the logistical data entry portion of the registrar piece. I would be curious. I don't think we need to know this now, but for longer term, how many students are registering over the summer, like outside of the time where we have an administrator in office? And could it be, is there a workaround there? Is perhaps something, Mickey, if you're able, when you're coming back, for you to think about in terms of getting a budget for us to be able to vote on in another week? And since I asked for us to pull this out of order, I would like to suggest that we ask the town to increase their contribution to Pelham Elementary's budget by $25,000. That we have two budgets in front of us, one with the $6,000 included and one without the $6,000 included, so that it does not seem to me like there's consensus on which way we want to go. And so this way, when we reconvene on April 7th, we would be able to vote for one or the other and make a decision.
Well,
I don't know. I know that's unorthodox, but those are some of my suggestions.
okay, so I guess I'd like to see a show of hands about whether or not to include that $6,000 this year. So do people agree with adding in the $6,000? Could I see a show of hands? So nobody wants to include it in the budget for this year. Nobody said yes. So seems to me that's the recommendation, that we don't include that in the budget. William?
I just want to say I would not recommend that Amherst subsidize that position though. Like, even though I don't want to have that 6,000 in the budget, I don't want to have the 6,000 in the budget the way it's presented. And I would like to know what our costs are to support the person that's currently doing it.
Shannon?
Yes.
What Rachel suggested about having two budgets in front of us assumes that we would have, well, there's a couple of possibilities. We have about a week and a half to our scheduled budget vote, and we can't put that off. We have to vote then so we can get the number to the town for the warrant. I'm sorry, my brain just lost it.
It sounds like we possibly need three options, and I'm happy to do all of them, and we would have them by the 7th. One is a budget without the 6,000, one is a budget with the 6,000 as presented, and one is a budget with the current registrar and what percentage of their salary would be for them to continue doing it. And if that's what you would like to see, I'm happy to provide it.
Yeah, I see a lot of nodding heads. Thank you for offering that. All right, so I think we're in agreement. Does $25,000 sound okay to everybody for an ask for the town? I'll get you.
Can we figure out what the percentage is? I said that number really without doing the work I should have done. Sorry.
And so somebody suggested 1%.
Which should be like a little less than 20,000, I think, because it's 1.8 million. So 1% more would be 18,000.
That's correct. And yeah, I have my little formulas in an Excel. So if you want to give me a percent, I'll pop it in and tell you.
How about 1.25, half of what the other departments are getting?
Yeah, I like that.
1.25 is 22,551.
Yeah.
Let's go with, I would like to go with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I see all the heads nodding. Okay.
And then I wanted to quickly ask, does Shannon have a special restaurant that she likes to eat at with her family? Because maybe we should send some kudos to her for having to work so hard to do 3 more presentations for us by next week.
Oh, you're too kind, but
maybe you can drop that off somewhere. Drop some hints about what restaurants you like.
yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we are going to present a budget that has an additional 1.25% from the town. And we're going to have the 3 options on the money for registration school choice. Anything else? I see no head shaking no.
I just wanted to acknowledge, I really appreciated the answers to all of the questions that we posed at the last meeting, which was a separate document attached to the agenda. We didn't really talk about it much tonight, but I know it required effort for folks to get all that information back to us. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you.
Thank you. I do think it helped with some of our conversation tonight to have that information in front of us. And yes, thank you to everybody who worked on that.
There's a question in the chat. I know we typically wouldn't take them. I just wanted to make sure we're aware it's there.
Yeah, these are comments from a school committee member. Yeah. I'm sorry, from a community member, which are here for everybody to see. Okay. And
we'll get clarity in the next meeting on the status for choice at Amherst also.
Yeah, let me make a note for that one. On when they're going to vote?
Yeah, or if they magically have it in the next week and a half.
Yes. I'll do that. Okay. Well, I think it was a really good discussion tonight. I really appreciate everybody's thinking about the issues and being willing to speak up about them. And I think that's about it for tonight. And we will come back together on April 7th. And there will be
that meeting's in person. Yes, I just wanted to
be an in-person meeting. Yes. Okay, well then I am going to move to adjourn tonight's meeting, the budget hearing.
Second.
Thank you. William?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Sarah Bess?
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
And again, thank you to everybody else who is here. Thank you to the community members who listened and who made comments, and to all of the staff involved in putting all of this together. Thank you very much. And I say yes.